joining for the first half hour. So I think we can call to order.
All right, and we are live.
All right, I will be reading our Zoom policy. This meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with State of California executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Zoom is being utilized for this meeting. In case of technical issues, meetings will be uploaded to the city website as soon as possible after this meeting. We will be conducting today's meeting in a virtual setting using Zoom. Committee members and staff are participating from remote locations, practicing appropriate social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting by use of Zoom as noted on the city's website and as noted on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak to the Climate Action Committee may do so during public comment or may comment on agenda items during the discussion of each item and must be logged into Zoom. Anyone using abusive, vulgar, offensive, threatening, or harassing language, personal attacks of any kind, or offensive terms that target specific individuals or groups will be muted and removed from the meeting. Please do not abuse this new way to provide public comment. All right, you want to do roll call?
Let me find the mute button. Okay, and we will start off with our co-chairs, Joshua Samin.
Yes, here. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. And Kenna Lee.
Here.
Jerry Glazer. I do not see Jerry yet. Alex Goodman.
Here.
Dina Allen.
Here.
Lisa Pierce.
Here.
All right. Sarah Elliott. I do not see Sarah. Sunali, we know, is absent. Woody Hastings.
Here.
Diana Rich, Luke Lindenbush, and Sarah Gurney are all absent. And we have a new member. And Ms. Garcia, I don't know how to pronounce your name, so if you could unmute yourself and let us know, that would be great.
My name is Jasenia. Hi, nice to meet all of you.
Excellent. So Jasenia is our new youth member.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here.
And then we also did have Debbie Burns appointed as the business member, but I do not see her here yet either.
Okay, so I have been in a little bit of chaos as usual, and I did reach out, Woody, to see if you could come up with something last minute, but didn't hear back. Woody's like, what are you talking about? So I think the inspiration today is just going to be, we have new members, and that is inspiring of itself to have new people coming on board and helping us out. Jasenia, one of the things that we try to do is have people at the beginning of the meeting present a little inspiration of why we or how we keep ourselves engaged with this work and keep it moving forward. So I think it might be worthwhile. Do we know if our other new member is planning to attend today?
I have not been in contact with her, so but I will touch base with her and make sure she is aware of. I believe she knows when the meetings are, so but I have not had a chance to catch up with her on that yet. She has already had the Planning Commission orientation, which includes all of the Brown Act and other committee orientations for that, and I can certainly do that with Ms. Garcia as well. Which we didn't do for the entire, we did sort of as a group orientation for the Climate Action Committee, but I'm happy to talk a little bit with, I'm sorry, pronounce your name again. I keep wanting to say Jesse, and I know that's not it.
No, it's all right. I get that all the time. It's Jasenia.
Jasenia, okay. So Jasenia, if you would like, we can set up an appointment to talk a little bit more about that, but you are certainly able to participate fully today. And if there's any questions, that's what I'm here as the planning director.
So Carrie, I'm a little bit, or maybe Joshua, you can help me out here too. I'm a little lost on how many members we actually have and what constitutes a quorum now, because I think both Diana and Sarah are voting members now, if I'm correct.
Right. So just counting on our website, it says we have 13 members. So a majority of that, which would be 7, would be a quorum. And we have 1, 2,
Have-
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you do have a quorum today.
Do we have 8?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Sorry, you have 7.
Okay. All right, so it's possible for us to make decisions if we want to.
Correct.
But I don't think we have a lot of decisions to make today. I do think that it might be worthwhile to welcome Jasenia with a little brief intro of who's in the room and what we're doing here and what we work on. So you can start to get a little context and you can share a little bit about yourself as well. Because we don't know anything except that you're here and you're our new youth member, is my understanding. So I'm Kenna. I am a mom and a hospice nurse and a climate activist. And my areas of interest are particularly climate effects on human health, and mitigation, adaptation, and building resilience as regards to healthcare and our ability to be alive. Woody, do you want to go next? I'm just going to call on people in the order that you're showing on my screen, so it'll probably feel a little random.
Sure, I'm Woody Hastings, and nice to meet you. I've lived here in Sebastopol since 2009, and with my wife June, and my day job is at an organization called the Climate Center. So I kind of beg, borrow, and steal a lot of information and resources and activities and programs from the work that I do at the Climate Center to help support this group. And a lot of my work revolves around energy, clean energy, and transportation. I'm on the Transportation Committee, the funding for this group, Transportation Committee, Funding Committee, and Environmental Justice and Equity Committee. So we, you're probably aware we've broken up into committees. And I was there for the City Council meeting when you were interviewed, and very impressed with your background and your record and your activism at such a young age. So you've already been doing so much stuff. So that's really great. Really nice to meet you and have you on board.
Joshua, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Joshua Somade. I am trained as a landscape architect. I've been studying sustainable design for 20 plus years. I'm mostly interested in kind of landscape-based solutions about getting the carbon out of the air and into the ground, and how we can make working landscapes carbon sinks and kind of restore the resiliency through the earth itself. And aside from that, I'm a co-chair with Kenna, and yeah, there you go.
Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Pierce. Very nice to have you with us. I'm on the funding committee and the energy committee, and I'm just going to keep it short because I know we have a lot to do today, but very nice to meet you.
Dina?
Hi, welcome. I'm in the working groups for sequestration and also for education and outreach. And we have a home nonprofit business where we are working with alternative energy and climate change. And my big activist interests revolve around food, which has to do with growing food and getting food to people that don't have food, and gardening and sharing food. So.
And Alex?
What's going on? My name is Alex Goodman. I've lived in Sebastopol for 5-6 years now, something like that. I have a background in agriculture, organic agriculture, and sustainable farming. And I think that's a little bit of my background and what I bring. And I'm in the Education and Outreach Committee, as well as the Transportation Committee. Thank you. Look forward to working with you.
And is that Jerry who just came in?
It is. I didn't have a clock in front of me. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Hi, Jerry. We're just introducing ourselves to our new youth member, Jasenia Garcia. And I'd love it if you could just do a really quick intro of yourself, what committees you're on, I mean, what working groups you're on. And yeah.
Okay. I'm Jerry Glaser. And I've done a number of things, and we won't go through all of those. And the committee that I'm working on is the Energy Committee. I wanted to work on CAP as well, but we just don't have enough resource to do the CAP. So I focus on the energy.
And by CAP, he means Climate Action Plan.
Climate Action Plan, I'm sorry.
And we also have two members of the public here who are faithful attendees, Steve Pierce and Zeno, whose last name I don't know how to pronounce. Jerry, help me out.
Spy Link.
Okay. thanks.
Spy Dink. Right, Zeno?
Zweiting, January Zweiting. Yeah.
I had to write it down phonetically.
Thank you. So Jasenia, do you want to introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah, it's super nice to meet all of you. I'm excited to work with you. I'm Jasenia Garcia. I'm 16. I've lived in Sebastopol my entire life, and I am going to be senior at Orchard View this year. I am a big activist. I have a big heart and just care about everything, honestly. But some of my focuses definitely revolve around the climate, regenerative agriculture and economics, a transition to more locally strengthened communities, and a lot of other things. I'm really excited to be here and work with all of you. And I wanted to join because I really wanted to see how local government works and how plans and ideas can flow through the system. So I'm excited. Thank you.
Great. Thank you and welcome. So it would be great if I'll try to touch base with you after the meeting or later this week to talk about what working groups you might want to join and how you want to use your time with this group. In the meantime, Joshua, do you have the review of action items or should I read that? It's me. Okay, good thing I pulled it up. So our action items from last time were the council presentation on the 3rd by myself and Sarah Elliott. I was to prepare a list of the working groups, which I have, but did not go out with the agenda. The working groups were to email education priority ideas for our community upcycled art project to Sonali. And the upcycled art project was to present to the Public Arts Commission. I'm not sure if that was completed. And then the funding work group was to provide updates about the UUT to the chairs so that we could send it out with the agenda, which they completed. So moving on to comments from the public regarding items not on our agenda today. Do we have any public comment? Yes, Zeno.
Yeah, I noticed for a while that I cannot save the chat. So people type in information in the chat, but you cannot save it. So I'm now putting something in the chat that shows you if you want to, sorry about that. If you want to save or have people save or able to save the chat, you need to change the profile setting in Zoom. And then you and I can save the chat. So if people type in an email address or a link, I would be able to save that.
Carrie, do you have any idea whether that's up?
I can do that. I do know that there are certain meetings that we, as a rule, don't save the chat for or don't actually allow chat for. So I know I will look at I'll look at the link and see if I'm able to do that for future meetings.
Okay, yeah, I think
You should be able to do it as a moderator because I do it for the EAA now because people ask for the same thing.
Yeah, I'm looking if there's a way I can do it in this particular meeting as well, because that would be, yeah, the best way to. I'll play around and look at my settings right now.
Thank you. Any other public comment regarding items not on the agenda? I don't see any, so we will move on to statements of conflict of interest. Does any member of the committee have any statements of conflict of interest for this meeting? I do not see any, so we'll move on to our planning department report.
Thank you, Kenna. So a few updates for you. First, the CAC had their quarterly update to the City Council a couple Tuesdays ago, not this Tuesday, but the previous. And I want to thank Kenna and Sarah was there as well. And I think Woody was there for the whole meeting until the very end with myself because of the gas station ban. I realized it was a lengthy meeting. That's what happens with certain planning items and certain council meetings. So hopefully enjoyed the rest of the presentations. And so Kenna, I don't know if you wanted to somewhat your report out to council at all to this group.
I don't think there's really much to report. It was very much one-sided this time. There wasn't a lot of conversation that happened afterwards. I think everyone was exhausted. So you guys know what we were reporting, and I'm happy to, if anybody wants to see the PowerPoint that we ended up doing, I'm happy to send that out. But it's basically what we covered in last meeting that we plan to cover.
Right, and that did include term limits, the recommendation to council for them to be two years. And they, I believe council determined that they would like it to be on the same schedule as other committees, which is ending on the December 31st, even though this committee started meeting in the middle of last year around this time, I think, or whenever it was that was begun. We'll be bringing that back to council as a separate item for, since the CAC was an informational report. They were fine with that, was their feedback, but we will need to schedule that as an item. And so I will take care of doing that. Other items that were on the agenda, we did have a discussion of the gas station ban. And again, thanks, Woody, for staying there with the CAC rep, as well as your own interests. The council did direct staff to work with both the Climate Action Committee and the Planning Commission to work to make that happen and bring that back to council. And so Kenna and Joshua, I probably want to talk with you at what meeting might be the appropriate meeting to agendize that based on what your forward meetings are looking like. And I don't know, did you want to take a question from Woody?
Yes, please go ahead, Woody.
Thanks. Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, and I just wanted to mention that vote by the City Council, unanimous vote to direct the Planning Commission and this body to review the new gas station prohibition ordinance got into the news. So I saw there was a story in the Press Democrat, there was a story I think in the Community Voice, and I think I saw it one other place. I mean, I think it got out there kind of. So it was good to see that made a little bit of some headlines, or at least, well, maybe not headlines, but news.
And then lastly, the Civic Spark process. Tanya and I interviewed several candidates on Monday, and we did have Civic Spark extend an offer to our top candidate. We actually had two that we thought would be great for the position. The top candidate, her name is Phoebe, she has accepted. So we do now have that process being put in place. She will be starting in September. And we'll certainly have her at our first CAC meeting where she's available after, I'm not sure when in September. I have an orientation September 1st. Tanya and I do as the partners organizations for that. And so I suspect the start date is later in September for the fellow, but just so you all know, that is moving ahead. And so Phoebe will be joining us at upcoming meetings. And Ken and Joshua, I'll let you know when I know which meetings that we can reserve appropriate time on the agenda. And then lastly, I believe I sent out to the group, although I don't think I had our new members on it. The Planning Commission is actually having a meeting on October 24th to kick off a project that's part of the Ives Park Master Plan, which is naturalization of Calder Creek. and we're working with two different organizations on that. One is the engineering firm who's helping the city with a lot of our capital improvement projects, who will be doing the hydrology study and sort of the technical engineering to confirm it's feasible without, to basically take it from a concrete channel to a more natural creek, back to more of a natural creek without flooding properties, and making sure, since it is part of our stormwater system, that it has the appropriate capacities and everything as we design the creek. The other part of it is Waterway Restoration Institute. And they also have a fellow from the Switzer Foundation grant to do this project. And so that's actually of no cost to the city, but they'll be doing the community visioning on what people would like the creek to be and what it could be. And so the main kickoff session for that is 6 o'clock on August 24th at our upcoming Planning Commission meeting. And so extending that invite to all of you, even though you got the email, just a little bit more context on that. And I think that's it for my report, unless anyone has questions.
Thank you so much, Carrie. That's a lot. Woody, did you have a question?
Yeah, just what time of day are those planning commissions usually?
So we actually just switched them from 7 o'clock to be 6 p.m. So the same time that city council starts, so a little bit easier to remember maybe. And they generally do not run as long as city council meetings. We have a little bit more control over our agenda. So I have either 1 or 2 items on the agendas. The 24th, this will be the main item. And so that will be, and yes, I see I'll post to the chat as well, the information, the link for that meeting. But they start at 6 o'clock.
Any other questions for Carrie before we move on? Tina.
Could you say the name of the group with the restoration part of it, please, again?
Sure, it's Waterways Restoration Institute, and they do go by WRI for short.
Any other questions for Carrie or comments? All right, so we will move right on to our regular agenda because our council members are not here. Dina, I'm assuming your hand is still up from previous and it's not a new request. So onto our regular agenda. Number 1 is our funding group of our UUT progress.
Thank you. And I've been designated to kick this off. So thank you very much. So the funding committee is myself and Lisa Pierce and Steve Pierce. And really this item, we're not asking for any action today. This is just an update on the item that we brought forward back in May. And it seems like just yesterday, but it was actually a while back in May. With the proposal for the utility users tax and looking at trying to use that utility users tax as a means of raising funds that could be used for climate action. We call it UUT for short, and it's a tax it's a tax on a number of things, but for the purposes of our approach to it, it's looking at the fossil gas use and electricity, which have some greenhouse gas factors involved. It's unfortunate that the council members are not here because I know that they could help provide some information here or understanding, because the city is in the process of looking at ways to increase their general fund, and they're hiring a consultant to help with that. And we know that the UUT is going to be part of that. So this isn't something that, that the Climate Action Committee or our committee has, sort of complete control over or dibs on the funds that might be raised from the UUT. What we've got here, what was in your packet, is a brief memo that we put together with some updates. We had some questions for staff We've got some answers. We're planning to have another meeting in the future to explore some things even deeper. But for right now, we just wanted to give a little bit of update, let y'all know that this is still on our radar screen. And we put a hyperlink to the original proposal there in the memo, so you can use that for reference. But the information that we were able to receive from staff is that the UUT, the UUT, which is currently at a rate of 3.75% on the energy bills, if it were to be increased to what we proposed. And by the way, I wanted to invite Lisa and Steve to chime in at any point if I'm missing anything or misstating anything, that we if we were to increase it from 1 percentage point from 3.75 to 4.75% for residential customers, that would cause an increase to their energy bills by about a little over $2 a month, and altogether, and it would raise about $80,000 a year in additional funds. And I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa or Steve, that includes that total number, the $80,000 a year, includes the commercial customers, but it's we're a little less clear on what the average commercial rate is. There's a lot of sort of inconsistencies with the types of businesses and their energy use and that kind of thing. So that's one of the things we need to explore further. So, with what we've currently proposed and the information that we currently have, with that 1% increase, and by the way, I think I forgot to mention something that's in that original proposal. The UUT is set to expire in 2024, so it needs to come up for a reauthorization. That's an important piece of this. It would go away altogether. It requires a vote of the Sebastopol electorate to impose this tax on themselves. So it was originally voted in 2008 by the voters. It was reauthorized in 2012 or 2014, I think it was. I see Joshua's hand. Joshua?
Just a small clarifying question, Woody. Does this apply only to residential customers within city limits, or is it all Sebastopol addresses?
It's residential. It's all residential customers, and it also applies to commercial and industrial customers as well. So non-residential customers. And that's the piece that we're a little less clear on in terms of the how that would be approached. There's some complexities with that because there's different commercial categories of commercial customers, so it gets a little bit complicated. So that's why we're working to set a meeting with city staff to go over some of those issues. We did include the equity assessment in the original proposal, and so that's another one of the issues that we want to review with staff, is an idea around the situation where you've got the qualified low-income customers. The acronyms are CARE and FARA. California Alternative Rates for Energy, I think, is the CARE acronym. I forget what the FARA one is, but anyway, those are special rates for folks that are of lower income levels. And what we recognize there is that there is a sort of gray area of folks that are maybe very modest income, but they're not quite to that threshold. So we want to explore a means to make an allowance, some kind of system where folks that have some hardship can apply for basically a discount along the lines of CARE FARA, that those folks can apply for and make that available to others. that are in a lower income level. I see Kenneth's hand.
Yes, I just had you answered most of my question about the equity issues, but I didn't know if those categories that you spoke about include the medical baseline customers.
Medical baseline is actually a different category than care and FARA. And so, that applies to folks that have medical equipment that requires electricity. And so that's a different rate tariff, different rate structure. So we didn't look at that. We looked at the low income piece of it, but that may be something else to explore. I saw Zeno first and then Steve, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be facilitating, but so far I'm doing it. Nobody's complaining.
Well,
So,
you have the floor, so.
Zeno, go ahead.
Yeah, so just as a member of the public, I'm trying to anticipate what the response will be of the electorate to something like this. And I think it would be really helpful if you guys had like a project that was energizing and appealing rather than first ask for money and it's not clear at all that we need money, because there seem to be a lot of things that could be done by the city that are political will issues and not necessarily projects that need to be funded. So I think if you want to have this fly, even with the city council, you need to kind of say more about the need for this, and that there are no alternatives, or that you're simultaneously working on alternatives. I think there are a lot of people in town that really care for this issue and that would be willing to voluntarily donate money to a project that seemed to be energizing. So that, yeah, that's my comment.
I think that's a great comment, and we've actually discussed that a bit in our subcommittee, and we've gone back and forth on it. And I think you're probably right. We should probably at least have some short list of what kind of examples are the kinds of things that if we were to be able to garner some funds from this UUT, what would we spend it on? So I think maybe not saying it would be this, because we can't guarantee anything, but we could maybe have sort of a list of examples of the kinds of things, complete streets or bike lanes, or and it's not a lot of money, but so it can't cover everything, but we could give some examples. Steve?
I just wanted to follow up on Joshua's question, and it would only apply to residents and businesses within the incorporated city, so not outside of town. And for some comparison's sake, there are some other cities in Sonoma County that do have the utility users tax. Santa Rosa is at 5%. And we have one other, Cloverdale, and they are at 3%. You jump down into Marin County, the only one there is Fairfax at 4%, and then it bumps up quite a bit when you get into the East Bay and San Francisco. East Bay, predominantly 7.5%, and to a high of 9.5% in Albany. That's all.
And I think I wanted to just mention, this is kind of to Zeno's point, and I would need to look back, maybe some of the other committee members have, at how the UUT was voted in back in 2008 and 2014, because at least the 2014 vote was close to 60% in favor. So the voters liked it, and I would need to look back at what kind of campaign materials went out, and if anyone has any recollection of that, chime in. But obviously there was, a case to be made that this was something to benefit the community. Joshua?
Yeah, just to refresh that point about city limits versus not, and I'm totally claiming no expertise on this subject whatsoever, just floating some ideas out here. given that Sebastopol is such a commuter town and is a hub for this larger area, and that there's a lot of Sebastopol addresses that are not technically within city limits, I don't know if it would be feasible to consider expanding the radius of the UUT to a wider range of addresses, which might give you an increase in income without having a significant, you could perhaps raise the percentage somewhat less if it was a more inclusive net of the Sebastopol area. No idea on the feasibility of that, just on the
Yeah, I mean, I can respond pretty clearly to that. And the UUT is a function of state law, so you'd actually have to change state law to make that happen.
And I will say, if that happened, I would imagine unincorporated county would want its share if unincorporated parcels are being taxed. So
Right. Okay, Steve, I see you just put your hand down. Lisa just put her hand up. Okay, Lisa, take it away.
Well, I think we have been thinking quite a bit about what kinds of projects we'd want to spend money on. And it is ultimately the city council's decision on how the money gets spent, as far as I understand it. But the Energy Committee has been working on a priority list and trying to really figure out the best bang for the buck in terms of what to focus on.
Any other questions or thoughts? Kenna?
I'm just wondering what the next step for our committee is around this. Are you just, is this really just we're still thinking about this, keeping us informed of the thought process, or do you kind of have a timeline that you're working with?
I will, yeah, let me answer that now, and then I'll go to, I see your hand, Zaina, so we'll go to you next. So the very next step for us, for the committee, this is informational. We're not asking you to do anything right now. For the working group, we are going to be meeting with staff later this month to try to get even further clarity on some of the things that we're still not entirely clear on and really require more of a discussion rather than bouncing emails back and forth. So that's our next step. I think the other piece for us, both as a committee and as our working group, is to not, since the city itself is now pursuing this with a consultant, we want to avoid any kind of wagging the dog kind of thing. So we should, I think it's going to be incumbent upon us to work with the consultant in the city and to the best of our ability, see what we can do to steer some of these funds for climate action. But I think that, really the city has sort of the football here, if so to speak. So that's kind of the best answer I have at this point. Maybe Lisa, does that sound about right? Okay, so Zaina, what's your question or point?
Well, just to get a reality check about how much money this is, how much do we pay, or does Caltrans pay for putting the bike lane into Highway 12 from, I think, downtown, maybe Regal Road, maybe Pleasant Hill? How much does that cost? Just to get a sense what you can do with this kind of money. Carrie?
I can look that up. It is in our adopted capital improvement plan. I do know that we got a major grant of about $1 million or so to do that. It's part of the bike lanes are part of a larger project of reconstructing Bodega Avenue and a couple of sidewalk gap projects, things like that. I can post in the chat what the CIP cost is for that. And they are actually breaking it into 2 phases because of the cost being so significant. The first will be from downtown out towards Robinson or Pleasant Avenue. And then the second portion of it will be out to the city limits when that happens. So, but it's in our budget document, which is capital improvement document, which is on the city's website, but I'll look up that particular project and post in there. I just wanted you to know that the number I post is only for a portion of it, not for all of it.
Thank-
Okay, so Woody, I take it your presentation is finished, or is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Lisa or Steve, was there anything else that we wanted to? Yeah, just this, well, I guess the last thing I'll say is this is just one thing we're looking at. We are looking at some other, potential mechanisms, real estate transfer tax, things like that. And so we will, as we have other proposals coming forward, and as this one makes progress, we'll keep you informed.
So I'm going to officially call for public comment, but kind of with the assumption that we've already had our public comment built into our discussion. So official moment for public comment. Any further public comment on this agenda item before we move on? I don't see any, so we will move on. And
thank you all.
Before we do, I just really want to thank Woody and Lisa and Steve for their hard work on this. There's a lot going on that comes into these report outs. So thank you so much for continuing to move funding options forward for the group. So the next item is working group formalization. And most of the groups I have a leader, but I'd just like to get an official confirmation of that from each of you and official permission to post either a phone number or an email address on the city website for the people who are the point person for the different working groups. So the energy working group, the official members of this committee who are on that group, and they've been very successful at working with other experts in the community, but we have Lisa, Jerry, and Kenna on that group that are members of the committee. And I believe Jerry is the point person. He's willing to be, and he's willing for his email to be on the website. So if there's no objections, then we can let him be that communication hub for the energy committee. Working group. Then for finance/funding, I have Lisa and Woody on that group with Lisa as the point person.
Right, I'm sorry, I guess I'm already unmuted. I guess I didn't really get that we were going to be prepared to make a decision about that. I didn't really plan on having my phone number or email on the city website. I don't know if that's a requirement or it's not. Yeah, I don't really have an email ready to go that's kind of not my real email, so that'd be my preference to not have it there.
Yeah, so would you be interested in making an email account that you would use for that working group, or would you rather just not have an email posted for that working group?
Oh, I don't know. Woody, how would you feel about that? Would you rather?
I think it would be pretty easy to make a Gmail address that could be forwarded to any one of our accounts. So, yeah, I think we could do that, transgroup@gmail.com or something.
Sure. Okay.
So I'll just put Lisa, you would be are you okay with your name being
Yes.
posted? And then we'll say email to come.
Yes, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
And yeah, if you need help on setting up a Gmail address, Lisa, I can help with that.
Thank you.
So our research group is Diana and Luke, with Diana in the lead role. And I will have to check with her afterwards. I'm assuming since she has a publicly available city email that she would be comfortable with that being reposted, but I will double check with her. For the equity group, I don't have an identified lead. So Woody,
I thought you were the lead on that one.
I can be the lead. We just it's never official. So I will be the lead, and I'm comfortable putting an email up there. The sequestration group, I also don't have a identified lead from Dina, Sunali, and Joshua. That's who I believe is on that group, or that's who self-identified in the survey as being part of the group.
So Nolly dropped out of this group.
Okay. So just Joshua and Dina?
Yes.
At this point.
And Joshua, were you waving your hand as the lead person?
I was just raising my hand to raise my hand. I am comfortable being the point person role if Dina is comfortable with that. My preference also would be to set up a Gmail specific to it rather than to put my own email address on a public forum. And I'm willing to do that. I'll just, set up a Gmail that has some neutral name that both Dina and I can access that we can add others to. On the same front, I'm wondering if there's a general contact info email for the committee as a whole or for the chairs. It seems like if we're doing this for all the working groups, we might as well have one for less specific inquiries.
So Carrie, I don't know if you have any thoughts about, we've kind of had this idea kicking around for a while of having an email address for the committee, and I'm not really sure where it ended.
Right. I did talk to the city clerk about that, and so we don't have city emails available for members of committees and whatnot other than the city council. But what we can do is put together a like climate at City of Sebastopol email list. I'm sorry, I don't know the technical term of what it's called, a group, where basically anything sent to that would go to whoever you wanted it to go to, if that makes sense. So if you had, so like it could go to the moderators as well as a member of my staff, myself or Rebecca, to have that as a public record if needed. But if it's, so I don't know if that is helpful at all. So it would go to your email, but it would, when the person sends it from the public, it would go to a climate at City of Sebastopol email.
I think that would meet the need you're talking about, Joshua, correct? So yeah, I think we should just move forward with setting that up.
Okay, and
Lisa, I do see your. Go ahead, Lisa.
So Steve just asked me, does Jerry know that he's the point person? Did you talk to Jerry?
I via email. He gave he sent me like which of his many email addresses we could post on the city website.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. So education outreach, I have Alex as our lead for that working group. Are you there, Alex?
Sorry, just getting unmuted here. Yeah, I'm happy to have my information posted. I can just send you the specific email and phone number that I want to have on there, or maybe I can just do email only, right?
Yeah, email is, I don't think anybody's too excited about putting their phone number up. Maybe I'm just projecting that to the rest of the group, but I was working off the assumption that emails would be the primary contact listed. Is there anyone that wants their phone number up there? Yeah, I'm seeing shaking heads. Yeah, okay. So Alex, you'll send the email address that you want that from. And then we have transportation, so let me just go back and read the names for Ed Outreach: Alex, Dina, Sarah, Elliot, Sunali, and Kenna. And with Alex taking that lead. And then transportation, we have Woody, Alex, and Joshua, I believe. No, not you.
It's Woody, It's Woody, Alex, and Luke.
Luke. Okay, thank you. And is there an identified lead for that group? No one self-identified on the survey as lead.
Alex, are you the leader of that? What's the deal?
I'm happy to take lead if, I know you already got a lot on your plate, but I'm happy to be on the website for now, and I can start kind of rallying the troops. Maybe we can talk Luke into supporting us. We'll see. But for now, you can put me as the name on the website. We'll go from there.
That would be great. That would be great. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And just for the whole group to know, Luke did step back from the chair committee. So the chairs are Joshua and myself, and that we would be probably the appropriate people to receive the general inquiries and then pass them on as needed. I see Joshua nodding. So
I think that makes sense, Kenan. So I'll let, and I will say there is actually, I was looking through my emails, and what they actually did is they did actually set up an email account, climate-action-committee@City of Sebastopol. That will go to Rebecca, but so that we have for our city email retention policy as public records, but I believe we'll be able to auto forward to both Kenna and Joshua, so that we'll retain the record. We won't do any of it, but they'll honestly be forward to you two, and then you can distribute as appropriate.
all right, so thank you for your patience as we talked through all those work groups. Does any members of the committee have any further discussion on this agenda item? I don't see anything. Do we have any members of the public who have comments on this agenda item? I feel like I'm getting like super rules of order now. Yeah, go ahead, Zeno.
Yeah, so Jerry and I are meeting regularly to talk about things we're interested in climate change. And we're kind of moving into transportation. For the next sessions, we have this book, Better Buses, Better Cities. And so anybody who's interested in how to improve public transportation in Sebastopol and Sonoma County as a whole, and you have some time to talk with other people like Jerry and me about what are good strategies, that I just contact me and or Jerry, and we find a way to make it happen, find a time that is agreeable to everybody.
Great, thank you. All right, any further public comment on this agenda item? And seeing none, I'm going to move us on to agenda item number 3, which is sequestration working group, discussion of compost availability. And I believe that's you, Dina.
Yeah. So after I asked you to put this on the agenda, I started working on the matrix, but it didn't get sent to everybody. So I'm asking you, it's a pretty simple concept. Should I just talk it through? Is that okay? Or without showing? Okay, if anybody wants to see it, I do have it. Okay, so I've been talking to the City of Windsor, their group called We Act, which is kind of like the citizens group that does what we do. And I learned how the county has a deal with some compost facilities, because we don't have one in our county, to offer a number of truckloads of free compost to the different cities. And it seems to be kind of ongoing. So a truckload of compost is 40 cubic yards. And what Windsor did, and I think Hillsburg has already done it, is they picked a site with the city, and they had the compost delivered at a specific date, and the truck rolled it in a long log so that at the time of the pickup for residents, that they could just like back right up with their trunk or their pickup to the roll of compost with some volunteers backing them in. So more than one set of people could pick up their compost at the same time. And the way that it was advertised, there was a flyer with information in Spanish and English, and I have access to that to modify it for our needs should we get to do this. And they also just gave a little bit of a handout out at the compost site pickup to just give the best practices for using the compost that people were picking up for free. So this is good news that we can get ourselves 1 or 2 trucks of compost. And Joshua and I thought starting with 1 truck first and going through the process of distributing was a good idea before we asked for a 2nd truck. It builds soil health and aids in sequestration, so it goes right along with our goals. It's free, so can't argue with free. And I've talked to the person at Zero Waste Sonoma that is all ready to set us up with a truck and a delivery. And so I would like us to say, yes, we'd like to proceed with this so we can continue to make plans. And also from Carrie, I'd like to know if she knows if there would be a city property that we could use for the compost to be delivered and then picked up from residents.
So this is something that should be, I'm sorry, Joshua?
Just to say, I don't know if we're totally ready to identify a site just yet, but I am meeting with Dante at Public Works next week and would maybe begin that discussion at that point.
That's beautiful. I was about to say it needs to be coordinated with Dante.
Yeah, I was just looking for you to.
Yeah, I know they've done, that is perfect. I'm happy to have you coordinate with him directly. I know they've done sandbag pickup and things like that for flooding at the Public Works Corp yard. That's probably going to be the location, but I would totally leave it in Dante's hands.
Yeah. And in terms of this being equitable, it's as equitable as we can brainstorm ways to get the word out to anybody that has a garden or potted plants or, you know, in our area, Windsor did not check to make sure people lived right in the city line. And I don't know if that's really necessary either. So yeah, if we get to do this, then we would try to advertise through the city newsletter and as many other groups that have access to people that might be interested in this compost and brainstorm a lot of ways to get the word out.
For my part, I imagine it would be a priority to not have the compost sit there for all that long. So there would be a hope that we could do enough outreach up front to get rid of most of it in a weekend so it didn't end up being an eyesore for anybody in a particular location.
Mm-hmm. Is anybody excited about compost or just me? It's free. Come on, guys, get excited. Free compost.
Lisa?
I think it sounds great. Good job. And yeah, I think that there shouldn't be any, as long as it's not winter yet, especially, you know, if we can get it going, I'd love to help. Is it going to be compost and not mulch? Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Compost. And what it's suggested to offer about 1 cubic yard per household. So you just need 40 people to come and it's all cleaned up. Joshua and I would like to be able to do this to help people get ready for fall gardening. So it is kind of a push to get it done before winter.
I have a question for you guys. Are you needing help from other working groups, particularly education outreach, or do you guys feeling like you have capacity to do the publicity, develop materials, or, you know, kind of how are you envisioning us getting the word out, and how much of a public education about why is compost connected to climate do we feel we're capable of doing in the time frame that you're proposing for the project?
The flyer that we can build off of gives a very basic link between soil health and carbon sequestration and, you know, things we're working on. So that is probably really easy and feasible to do. Yes, I think the education and outreach group would help get the word out or submit blurbs about this. And from everybody else, just like if you have any ideas of how to share out this information, then that's how you can help. Or if you're affiliated with a gardening group, for example, or the, you know, any kind of group that might be interested, if you could pass on the flyer, that would be helpful.
And Dina, if you do have, not a huge flyer, but if you have a, well, you can send us the flyer and we can try to get it on the city's website as well. But if you have a little, like a couple sentences, time, date, all that kind of stuff, I can send it to Holly Hanson, who does our newsletter, to put it in the city newsletter when it gets close to that time.
Great.
Terry, when does the newsletter come out?
The newsletter, I know I usually get it in my personal email as Saturdays, Fridays or Saturdays. I think the deadline for it is Wednesday. So that's,
Okay, weekly then. Okay. Yeah, I think my hope would be that we have sort of a more concrete and practical proposal by the next meeting. And at that point, we're sort of launching the outreach. So presuming that the committee who is present today are basically in support of this as a concept, Dina and I can work out the logistics a little bit more. I'm going to try to focus on the practical end of things. And if Dina, you can kind of, put together that flyer a bit. And then if we could ask the committee in particular, and especially the education and outreach, just with support and getting the word out, that would be great. I don't think much more than that is going to be needed. We hope.
Right. And by the time we meet in 2 weeks, you would have already met with Dante. So we'll already know if city property is an acceptable location or we have to come up with something else.
Yeah, I would hope to have a location and a date established at that point.
Perfect.
Lisa, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just, I get emails from the Willowside School plant sale, and they always have news items, so I could contact them with the information. Also, the Sonoma County Jail, I get their gardening program. I get emails from them with news. Emerisa Nursery also advertises stuff like that, emails from them. Next door, there's a lot of ways to reach out to people. So I'm happy to help.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And we'll say it's for Sebastopol residents, but we mean greater Sebastopol, not just within the city limits.
And do any of the materials you got so far exist in Spanish?
Yeah.
Great.
Is there any, I would have to change some things on the flyer. So I would have to have somebody that knows way more Spanish than me look at my translation to, our dates and our city instead of Windsor.
Is there anyone on the committee who feels like their Spanish language skills are sufficient to that task, or should we find someone outside the committee?
I can, this is Alex. I can support with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further comments from members of the committee regarding the compost? I'm taking it you guys are not needing us to bring forward a motion to express support at this point.
I don't think so, unless anybody has concerns or questions. It would be great to have those up front. Since we're proposing just a concept at this point, I'm hoping that nothing formal is really needed. But yeah, if anybody wants to raise issues or concerns, we're totally open to that.
All right. Do we have any comments from members of the public regarding this agenda item? And seeing none. Oh my goodness, are we going to finish early? We'll see. We have working group reports. Are there any, since we've been talking sequestration, does sequestration have any other projects in the hopper that you want us to know about?
Nothing concrete at this time.
Okay. Anything from transportation that you want to report out?
Just that we've received some suggestions from some of the other committee members, and we're looking into all of the things that we've received. And we are still, I think, reported last time, we're working on setting up a regularly occurring meeting time, and we're very close to having that, but we're still working on that. That's all.
Thank you. Anything from education outreach that you want to report?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I think we have some of our key members missing, and I think there's a lot of folks that know what's going on already.
Did the art project get proposed at the Public Arts Commission?
I am not aware. But I can get that information and follow up via email.
Carrie's got her.
Yeah, just because we're working on the agenda this week. Our meeting is actually next week, and we do have some time reserved for Sonali. That's why I was asking before the meeting started if she was available for any materials. But we do have at least a brief amount of time for her at the beginning of the next, which is next Wednesday.
Great. On behalf of equity, I will say, unless you know anything, I think we're just still seeing how our matrix plays out as the different working groups projects use it, and we'll revisit that if needed, and continue to do outreach with the filling that environmental justice seat. We did make a request at the presentation for that seat to officially remain open, which is in line with what Carrie had discussed at our last meeting as well. So hopefully we'll be able to just leave that open till filled. No one from research is here. Finance funding, did you have anything to report out other than what you discussed earlier?
I was actually just gonna but on the equity position, Carrie, can you say at this point unequivocally whether or not that request for the seat to remain open, is that in place now, or is that still needing to be decided?
I don't remember. That council meeting was so long that I can't quite recall. And I know they did the appointments at the very end. That was like after midnight. So I'll have to review the minutes to see how they did there in that one.
Yeah, if you could, if there is a definitive answer on that, if you could get that to the subgroup, at least, or if not to the whole, committee, before, whenever you have it, that would be great. Or at the next meeting, I guess, is soon enough.
Okay.
Thanks. And to answer your question, I don't have anything more for the financing committee. Maybe Lisa does. I don't know.
All right, so our last working group for report out would be energy. And I know you guys are doing a lot. Do you have anything to tell us?
Well, we kind of wrapped up our priority matrix, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff kind of kicking around. Steve, what do you want to say about that? About the group? Anything?
Well, we're talking about micro utilities. We're still trying to land on some actual priorities, and having gone through taking all the recommendations that this committee works on and then giving our slice of priorities, we're hoping other groups will do that too. So there'll be some future presentation to the group. Jerry is kind of compiling that.
Should we?
Hopefully soon. I think, should we look at maybe on the next meeting, trying to do something with that?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
That was going to be my question, was should we put you on the next agenda?
Sure, why not?
All right, well, thank you, working groups. Are there any comments from the public regarding any of these working group report outs? Okay, and Joshua, go for it.
Just noticing that the review of action items is not specifically written on the agenda, but I am holding that piece.
Thank you. So in terms of chair reports, I have nothing this time. Joshua, do you have anything to report out? All right, then I think we can move to our, yeah, somehow I did this agenda and left off both the getting agenda items for next time and review of action items. I'll try not to do that again. Are there any other agenda items that members of the committee would like to propose for next meeting? Okay, I don't see any members of the committee. Zeno?
Yeah, I would like to see that Patrick from the City Council starts reporting about what happens at Sonoma Clean Power. And Sarah, who is at the Regional Climate Protection Authority and I think also transportation, they have meetings regularly that are to the core of what we're doing. So I think it would be really a good thing for them to kind of briefly summarize where they're at, where the issues are, how we can support that kind of thing, so that we don't feel like a little island and in action there's a big sea, but people that do a lot of work.
Thank you. And that actually brings me to something that I should have included in the chair reports, which is, I know several of you guys attended the SoCo climate mobilization call that happened a few weeks ago that Pete Gang and a few other people had organized. I know there's so many names of different things. I'm not even sure. I think they're calling themselves SoCo Climate Mobilization now. So that group is working on establishing a Slack channel for the groups within Sonoma County to be able to coordinate with each other. And I'm going to be in the pilot of that Slack channel. And I've sent an email already to Carrie and our council liaisons to request that the city weigh in on what the Brown Act implications of us participating in a Slack information sharing environment would be, just to confirm. But hopefully, if we can work out all those details, we could have a method for, say, people interested in energy in Sebastopol to be talking to the people in Windsor directly, kind of facilitate that networking through a Slack channel. So we'll see. I've never been on Slack, so it's going to be a new tool for me. It's probably a new tool for several of us. And then some of you are probably like, oh yeah, I use it all the time. But Tanya from RCPA is also going to be in the pilot group, and neither of us have used it before. So we figure if we can do it, then we can spread the word of how to make it work. So moving on to Joshua's review of action items.
Sure. So I have a couple of action items that are kind of falling to the chairs, that being Kenna and myself. We do have sort of a steering committee meeting next week that includes Diana and Sarah. We'll be able to catch up on some of these things. Just sort of refreshing our sense of the count of how many members we have this season, and if that's going to change next season, and what our sense of a quorum for voting and for carrying out business is. Clarifying that. We're probably still at 7, but it just deserves a double check. Then there's this issue of the city council asking the planning commission and our committee to review the gas station ban, and just kind of a sense of how we can agendize that in the months to come, looking at the overlapping meeting schedules of the different bodies involved and how we can set that up effectively. And then on to the working groups, that we have a general thing here that each of the point people in the working groups should be providing a contact email address that can be referenced on the city website. Specifically, Lisa and myself are in a position of trying to set up an auxiliary email for our working groups. Ken is in the position of checking in with Diana and Luke on the research subcommittee front. And I think the other ones were pretty well worked out. Finally, on the sequestration compost pickup day proposal, by the next meeting or so, Dina will be updating the flyer. And I'm going to coordinate with Dante at Public Works to attempt to locate a site and a date and just the physical feasibility of the logistics involved in that. And I think that is everything.
Thank you. That did bring up a question maybe for Woody about the timeline for discussing gas station ban, whether that's something. I thought we were waiting for our CPA to finalize their model legislation before we did anything to move forward. So I think I've been thinking a little bit further out than maybe council's intention is.
Yeah, it sounded like when when Councilmember Gurney discussed it at the meeting that RCPA actually also wanted to know what member cities were interested in, if they had intentions of moving forward. And so this is actually helpful for her to bring back to RCPA. I don't think the intent is that we do it before their next meeting, but I think she wanted a sense so she could report back as a member of that board at RCPA.
And that meeting was mid-September, is that correct?
September 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, right now that RCPA is doing this, it sort of throws a curveball. And I mean, you know, it's sort of really up to the city how it wants to approach it. I do know that Cotati is basically waiting to see what kind of guidance the RCPA puts out, what kind of model ordinance or whatever. And that might be the best way to go. But the city, the planning commissioner or our group could review all the materials prior to that. I mean, I don't really know a solid answer on how to approach it.
Okay. Woody, did you have something you had prepared independently, or were we more or less?
Yeah, the Coalition Opposing New Gas Stations does have a model ordinance and other materials that could be reviewed, you know, for consideration, and we could provide some advice prior to ever seeing whatever. And in fact, you know, we provided a lot of information to the staff at RCPA for their July, I think it was July 12th meeting where they discussed this issue. So.
All right, well, perhaps we should, given that 2 meetings for us from now, oh, actually we have 2 meetings as before the RCPA meeting and then 3 meetings to get after that. Like, it's all probably realistically happening next month, but we'll get it in the works.
Yeah, I just heard council particularly mentioning like wanting to, you know, we don't want to be last.
Yeah, and so from that perspective, there is a process for adopting an ordinance, and so we would do this as an ordinance, not an urgency. But actually, an urgency ordinance isn't final, and you have to redo it anyway. So since we already have a conditional use permit in place and could just simply not approve a use permit, the urgency isn't necessarily there. What I would, so a change to the zoning ordinance will require going to the planning commission. I already have their second meeting in August booked with the Calder Creek presentation. I don't yet know, I have confirmed items for their September, although I do know they have at least one large project that they'll be reviewing pretty soon. In terms of scheduling for them, if they had input from if the Climate Action Committee was able to have a discussion in September, and then I can bring that forward, hopefully with the CAC representation, Woody, to the Planning Commission, have them review the ordinance. They do the formal recommendation of ordinance and recommendation of the CEQA findings to City Council, and then City Council is the body that would adopt the ordinance. So realistically, they would be looking at it at the earliest in late September or early October, and then going to Council It's usually a month after that because we do have legal requirements for noticing, which is, I believe, either a 10 or 14-day and publication in the newspapers, which has a lead time to it. So, the Climate Action Group doesn't need to do those notifications as an advisory body, but I do need to do those for Planning Commission and City Council. So there's some built-in buffer and flexibility based on when the Climate Action Committee wants to take it up on your agendas.
Okay, so as long as we take it up before mid-September to provide our recommendation to Planning Commission, then.
Yeah, I would say at one of your September meetings would be just fine.
Okay. Right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, I think we're actually ending early. Am I forgetting something? I feel like I must be forgetting something.
Don't feel too bad, Ken. It's only 4 minutes early.
Okay. So I will adjourn this meeting until our next meeting in 2 weeks. If just any of you have time to stay on the Zoom for just a minute or two to check in so I can make sure I know how to contact you. Thank you all so much for your time and for the hard work you're putting in. I know these meetings are long enough, and I know you're all putting in so much work outside of these meetings. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Good job.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Right.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Okay, Jasenia, I'm assuming I have your email somewhere from.
Yeah, I'll put it again in the chat just in case.
That would be great. And did you get a sense from listening today of any working group that you're like, that's my group?
Not really. I have some ideas, but I definitely have not made up my mind yet. I would like, I think, a little bit more overview of them first, honestly.
Yeah. So I am writing down your email from the chat, and I'll just reach out to maybe chat more about where you see yourself fitting in and how we can help you make the most of this time for yourself and for the city. It's can be a little overwhelming to be the youth delegate on one of these committees. There's a lot going on of just, maybe you're like, no problem for me, but it seems like some of the youth delegates feel a little overwhelmed. So just stay in touch with us. Joshua and I are your chairs, and we're here to support you and for you to reach out with any questions. And then Carrie is, along with her very full day job, also saddled with our committee. And so there's particularly city questions. She's like one of the smartest and most helpful people that I've ever run into in my life. So
thank you, Ken. And actually, the one thing I did actually forget to say is that we have a associate planner, if all goes well, coming on board right after Labor Day as well. So I don't know if he'll be doing this group immediately with the Civic Spark Coalition. It may actually be better to allow him some time to get up to speed on everything else. When Alan was staffing this, he already had 6 or 9 months of working for the city under his belt to sort of head everything else down. So I don't want to overwhelm him and drive him away.
Yeah, let's not do that.
So I think I'll probably have the Civic Spark fellow working with this group, since they'll be coming in around the same time to begin with, and then transition John as she's leaving, or however makes sense with the committee.
Okay.
And Jasenia, just so we know, just so you know, we're still figuring out all this works too.
Yeah.
We all sort of came on board in like January or something and started flailing around for a while. And the working groups pretty much came from, we just said, hey, everybody, what are you interested in? What do you want to work on? And kind of took those lists and sifted them down into 5 to 8 categories and said, okay, that word sort of describes that field. And so it was kind of a way just for everybody to engage with something that they wanted to dig into. So it's not meant to be official so much as just a way to break down this huge issue of climate into actionable sort of categories. So, and Ken and I are very much just, not exactly making this up as we go along.
And I think we're making it up as we go along.
I mean, it started to solidify a little bit, so there's this sense that like the agenda is starting to work, but and anyhow, it's none of us are professionals, right? We're just trying to make it work. So welcome to that.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate the support, and I'll let you know if I have any questions. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to stick around to just talk about some process issues. You're welcome to eavesdrop, or you're welcome to just go claim your day.
Have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.
Okay. I feel like
Thanks, Alex.
so many things we could discuss, but